already looking ahead to the 2025 draft. If you look at the mock draft that many are putting out, Shedeur Sanders is in the first round. Some have them as the first quarterback selected. Deion Sanders certainly would. Deion Sanders is also proclaiming that, his Colorado Buffaloes, they're going to be playing in a bowl game.
Appreciate you. And for you just coming out here in this inclement weather, God bless all of you. Darn it, you're awesome. I would be remiss not to start our season out, and this is pretty much the start, without acknowledging the beautiful Miss Peggy. Where you at, girl? Where's Peggy? Peggy, wherever you are, I love you, we appreciate you, and our goal is we're going to get you to a bowl game, baby. Look at that. God bless you.
2 years after he takes over Colorado's program, that was awful, that had won a game. 2 years after that, he's saying we're going to get to a bowl game. Surface level, Chad, that would be, he's off to a great start. He brings on tons of pressure, expectation, because of all the hype behind him, because of all the eyeballs on the program. Chad, I haven't heard very much this year. There's a big difference in spring football this year and last year, and the difference is Deion and Colorado. We were discussing the massive crowd at Colorado a year ago, and now the crowd has certainly dwindled. Not great. The throwback-sized crowd for the spring game, according to Brian Howell. Poor weather. It looks like pre-prime crowd at this point. Yeah, that looks like a Vanderbilt home game, Chad.
Yeah. Vandy likes to get that crowd for a regular season game for sure.
Yeah.
Look, it was bad weather. I mean, I see spring games now, and I'm thinking the fact that anyone went out there in that weather to watch a spring game, I mean, good for them. I don't make a big fuss over the crowd.
But we compared it to last year.
I think if you look at a lot of places where it goes from year one to year two, I'm trying to look up Nebraska's attendance for this past weekend, because that was another Matt Rule year one to year two.
Yeah.
Now, Nebraska is a little bit different because they usually sell out every spring game regardless of who's coaching there. It's a big deal. I cannot find the attendance. Davey will find that and let us know. But I'm not putting too much stock in it. There's always a drop-off year one, year two for a new coach at a school. Weather was really bad. Here's my takeaway from that pep talk to the crowd and Miss Peggy, who's the older lady, who's the season ticket holder, that I know a lot of different places profiled last year as a big Colorado Buffaloes fan. It's that Deion Sanders, with all the pomp and circumstance that he brings to every situation he's in, and how much he is going to talk trash about everything, and he's going to come in with a mentality of, we're here to win championships. We're not coming, we're already here, I think is what he said after they beat TCU in game one.
Yes.
They go from that.
Do you believe?
To, hey, we're going to get you to a bowl game this year. That's realistic expectations. I'm not going to crush the guy because I'm looking at the schedule and I'm thinking, hey, if they get to a bowl game in year two, that's a good thing. But Deion Sanders in year one at Colorado would probably have told you they'd be thinking conference or national championship in year two. And that's where they'd be competing. I think year one humbled Deion a little bit. Coach Prime is now going into year two saying, hey, our goal is to get to a bowl game. We want to get Miss Peggy to a bowl game, which is 6 wins. That's a lower level of expectation than I thought we'd be hearing from Deion Sanders. It's also a realistic level of expectation that he should be thinking about. Davey, what was that Nebraska spring attendance for the game?
It was 60,452.
60,452. Now, they're always having huge crowds for the game, but that's year one, Matt Rule, to year two also. So, look, some places they pack them in for spring games. I think the whole tenor of spring games across college football has changed a lot.
No doubt.
And people don't care as much now.
Well, but people care about Colorado, or they did. We'll see if they continue to do, because they're pulling massive numbers. They're pulling NFL draft-like numbers. NFL draft, 12 million tuned in to the first round Thursday for an event for the sport that doesn't even feature the ball it's played with. People sat and watched that. Now, here is Shedeur Sanders, who, coming off of last year, is discussing the energy that they're bringing into 2024.
Going on, but I feel like we got all the negative energy out the building. So now it's just a positive vibe now. It's no really complaining. It's no anything about – we got to go out there and play with a clear mind. And when everybody's going to want the ball, everybody's going to want their part. But at the end of the day, I don't care if I end up each game with 150 yards. You know, like, I'm just trying to win this year. That's the biggest thing is
Negative energy. I mean, number one recruiting class in the portal last year. I mean, would those teams say that the players that left were a part of negative energy? I doubt it. And I didn't hear a bunch of discussion about negative energy when they were beating TCU and starting out, 4-0, Chad?
Well, look, when you're playing daddy ball, okay, and that's going to be the perception from the outside for a lot of people. Shedeur Sanders is going to start a lot of places. It's not like he's playing a bad player at quarterback or Shiloh. Pretty good player at safety, and it's better than most of what Colorado has. But when your whole thing is you and your sons and you're talking up your kids and how you're going to dictate the NFL draft and where they go, that can be a problem when you're coaching at the highest levels of college football. You know, that can be a problem if you're coaching travel ball and you got multiple kids on the team and you're always hyping them up over other kids. So there's an issue at Colorado football. I mean, one of their best players leaves and says, I'm not about, TikTok or just going viral. I'm about substance. Dylan Edwards, their star running back, is now going to Kansas State, has transferred out. So there is negative around that program going into this season. I'm fascinated to watch it. Deion Sanders just told us that the goal is a bowl game, which seems pretty small. But for this Colorado team, based off of last year and based off of the bad offseason they've had, that is a realistic goal and also one they should be striving for, and stop the nonsense about doing more than that right now because, quite frankly, they're not capable. And I think Shedeur Sanders is almost recognizing that with what he's saying about this game.
We haven't seen the same portal, class or anything like that. And Cormani McClain, to be fair to the whole story, though, he did leave and say, hey, I'm going to go to a real program that's not about clicks. He went there as a 5-star defensive back and then didn't play because of issues behind the scenes, whether it be showing up on time or whatever. Deion was sending a message to him. So at least I do think Deion Sanders holds players accountable. I do. The comments towards the end of last season where he said, hey, my guys just aren't focused. He's calling them out, saying that they're looking ahead to different things, either in the portal, headed pro, looking for the option, whatever it might be. He didn't like the effort that was being put forth in the second half of some of these games. I like the brutal honesty that he brings there. But there's always going to be the flash and the pomp and circumstance. And that's where the expectation and the hype meets reality. And we saw that mid-season last year. Specifically, it all started with the Stanford game. If they get that game, if they don't lose to Stanford, there's a different tenor to that season. They're playing in the postseason. And now we're looking at this going, well, does the momentum carry over, or are we looking at Shedeur Sanders and company leaving along with Deion for another job? Who knows? Well, is long-term, or is this just coaching the players he wants to coach?
I think it's going to be very short-term, the way I watch this program. And just from the outside looking in, I don't think that he's building this thing to sustain for a long tenure in Colorado. I feel like he's coaching the team now to try to maximize what he can in a short time while his sons are playing, and that everything after that is not really being planned right now for Deion Sanders.
He did change his staff, which is, he went in. Sean Lewis is gone as the OC. The new there's a new offensive line coach that was probably needed based on the way they played.
Some of that he changed, some changed for him because they wanted to leave.
Sure. After
a year of coaching with Deion Sanders. And I think that's the hard balance to strike is I don't think you're wrong, Hutton. I do think that he is about substance when coaching the team, and he is a guy who believes in personal accountability.
I think he wants to do it.
And working hard. He wants to stand for the right things. And when you really listen to him in interviews, he talks about a lot of the right things and players doing those right things. I also think it's difficult when you are a walking paradox that is blinged out.
Who backed it up?
That is talking about, the cars you drive and the suits you wear and running guys off, and you're talking a lot about superficial things that you get when you have a lot of money, and also trying to be about something that's greater than that and being a man of substance while also being a man of flair. It's a difficult balance to strike. So Kermani McLean's a good example of that, right? You're right. The kid's probably, not in the right headspace right now to be a responsible, accountable player for someone. And when he runs off at the mouth, doesn't really mean a lot. But I can also see where Kermani McLean probably got sold a bill of goods about going to Colorado and be in the program of Lil Wayne and Coach Prime going blinged out at all times and, having a Maybach show up to recruit you. There's a little bit of both here. Like, you can be about both, but when you're so loud about being about the money and one thing, and then you want to also be about personal responsibility, accountability, hard work, humility, all these other things, it's difficult to walk that tightrope. And I think we're seeing some of that with his program right now.
Yeah, there's some preacher
It's
in
confusing about – there's some righteous gemstones preacher to it. Not just preacher. There's some outlandish preacher
I don't think
qualities
Deion's running
about
over
it.
anyone in the parking lot. So, but I see what you're saying. Yeah, there's a
There's a little bit of televangelist.
There is, but
Vibe to
unlike the players on his roster, Deion backed it up in his career. Two-sport pro athlete, all-star. You've got all these different things, which I think would be very. He says he doesn't want to coach in the pros because of the mindset factor of the player versus coach and who's really running the team. Kermani McLean is a good example of running his mouth and not backing it up. There are several teams, according to On3 and 24/7 Sports, not reaching out to him. That they're not even trying to go after the former 5-star a year later because of things behind the scenes.
And again, I think this is why
Deion didn't play.
This is why I have so many question marks about Deion, though, because the coaches you go against don't care about how good you were as a player.
No, they don't.
And that's his big sell. Like, yeah, he can talk all he wants because he's one of the greatest defensive backs, maybe the greatest of all time. I mean, he's one of the greatest NFL players ever, and he's a multi-sport athlete who excelled in everything. But he's not yet excelled as a major Power now 4 level college coach yet. And I think that's the point of what other programs are going to recruit against with him. Colorado, it's pretty easy to recruit against Colorado's history in the last 20 years also, and he's trying to supplement that image and get rid of that and say, okay, we're something different now. I'm fascinated by the tightrope act of what he's trying to pull off, where I think he's done it right and where I think he could improve, and how difficult it is to not really be going hard at the high school recruiting part of this.
Yeah, that's
which he's not really doing right now.
But for what he's accomplished versus what Lincoln Riley or Ryan Day or there's several of these coaches that have not reached the pinnacle of Kirby Smart. There's Kirby Smart and everyone else right now. So he's put his name in the list, and we're starting mentioning college coaches in the middle within a 12-month time frame when he hasn't accomplished all that much.
No, he's put himself on that list because of who he is.
But you have
Not
Mark
because of what he's
Stoops,
done.
who is a top 10 paid college football coach, and Deion, who is receiving the expectation and the hype behind it. He wants that. That's how he is mentioned in these top coaches' name, like in the list. But it's not like he's the only one that is praised. Not just, I'm not saying even nationally, even just by the college that he's coaching for not really accomplishing much, just reaching a standard that is acceptable or above the line that you're used to at said university, a la Kentucky, right? Comparing some of the other coaches, a lot of coaches right now haven't accomplished all that much.
No, but Mark Stoops has been at it
they've been
for
a bowl game, and they're
for
winning
years. He was an offensive coordinator. He was at Florida State. He's won there.
Sure.
Lincoln Riley's been to playoffs.
But in terms of just results,
A good offensive coach.
But it's just pure results.
I mean, look,
We're
he
just
hasn't
talking
had a
wins.
chance to.
And he's coaching the SEC.
He's been there 1 year, and he went, 3-9?
No, they won 4 games.
4-8.
4 or 5 games.
In 1 year. I'm saying this. He's been a major college coach for 1 year. Like in FBS football, he's been a coach for 1 year. So he can only accomplish what he can accomplish in that 1 year. What's also going to work against him, and this is not really his fault, but the massive amount of eyeballs on him.
Yeah, that's right.
And the fame and celebrity he brings into it, all the talk about it is going to get everyone else saying, well, there's a lot of talk about you for a guy, who goes 4-8
Right.
in this 1 year. Well, whose fault is that? Is that the media's fault for paying so much attention to him, or is that Deion Sanders' fault?
I just know the discussion last year at this time of, okay, this is all fun. They're packing out the place in Boulder, but this is a really bad football team. And then they beat TCU. So the way they started versus the way they finished, vastly different. But at least Deion has admitted that. And at least they're not building the hype for a team that is probably come back down to earth a bit.
No, I think this is a good sign. I think
what he's
Deion
doing,
Sanders saying that they want to go to a bowl game, I think that's a realistic goal that is achievable. It's not going to be easy given their schedule, but I think this shows that he's being a little bit more realistic with expectations with this program.
I'm looking at 5 of their 8 losses, 7 points or less. That's what they're going to point to. And instead of building up the team, Chad, he's building up individual players. Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders for the NFL draft. That's that's the marketing campaign right now.
Well, and now to me, it's all about, if you're in it for the long haul, who is that next quarterback when Shedeur Sanders gets drafted and leaves?
Right.
Like, go build that. What is the offense going to be? Are you going to get a stud recruit for your next quarterback? And are you going to have some more, not just foundation, but some legacy to your sons playing for you? To where when they leave, it's handing it off to the next generation of Colorado players that you built either through the portal or through high school recruiting that right now seemingly he refuses to do.
They have Antoine Hill Jr., a 4-star, who is a part of their class for next year. He chose Colorado over Bama, Florida, and Penn State. This was October of last year. So if he's still sticking to that, there's your future at quarterback with Deion. That's the Deion effect, though. You get 1, 2, 3 of these guys who are 4 or 5 stars that are joining him instead of your perennial, your powerhouses, right? The question is, can he just continue to have that type of impact? And that's the high school player. That's where he's actually recruiting the high school level.
I think
I
think he gets the eyeballs for the start of this season too. It's not going to go away just after one season. People are going to be entertained. They're going to tune in. I think if they lose to the same way they did last year in year 2, people will stop caring. And then they'll come back on board if he's ever relevant, right? If he's there year 3 and 4 and Colorado starts out 5-0, then suddenly it's going to be a big story on Big Noon Kickoff, College Game Day, everywhere, because people are going to be interested in Deion Sanders again. But he's not going to get this whole season. I think he gets the start of the season again, and if this season fishtails the way it did a year ago, people are going to check out on Deion Sanders. Then it's going to be about what is his substance. What are they really trying to build as a program? What's their identity? And for me, that's a little bit hard to put my finger on right now as to what exactly they are, especially considering 2 of his best players are his sons.
Yeah, and then the hype behind the draft after that, and what he is or is not going to control with that. The organizations he doesn't want his son playing for at quarterback. Did you peek ahead at any of these way too soon mock drafts by chance?
Very minimal. I've seen a little bit.
The quarterbacks this year, we have 6 of the top 12 picks. I've seen 2 quarterbacks in the first round mocked right now. And one of them, Shedeur, and he's in like the late teens to early 20s. Again, that's one random mock draft for 2025, and I hesitate to even bring it up. But if you needed a quarterback, it doesn't look like next year's even. It's Carson Beck, Shedeur, and Quinn Ewers are the top 3 currently.
It's amazing to me how much time we spend and energy on mocking the NFL draft and trying to gauge where people are going to go and how quickly that evaporates when picks are made.
Oh,
because year to year, I cannot tell you what I was expecting most of the time for someone to happen unless a quarterback drops substantially in the draft. We remember the quarterbacks that we thought they were going to be top 5 and they go the second round. Aaron Rodgers, Will Levis, 2 good examples, but there's other ones out there also. But unless it's that, I can't think of another thing that the moment it happens, all of that prep, all of that time spent thinking about it, dreading it, anticipating it, wherever you fall, whatever side of the ledger you fall on with your team, how quickly it vanishes the moment the first night and especially the second night of the draft happens.
And all the grades. There's several A's, A-, B+. because we're grading as a media or as a reaction to those mocks, right? Everyone's consensus of where guys should go versus where they fall, and it's based on and graded against not the best scouts in the National Football League. It's not graded by the teams that make these selections. It's graded by those evaluating mock drafts and comparing where a player we thought would go versus where they actually fell. It's not an accurate assessment. Let's put it that way. We're actually better off, Chad, grading these drafts as like a D or an F because I'll have a better hit rate overall than some of the expectations that we have for these players, especially in the first or second round that should come in and just be instant gold jacket Pro Football Hall of Famers. I'm better off saying this guy's not going to reach that pinnacle. He's not going to be the savior of a franchise. And by and large, your general manager and head coach blew it this weekend. They're going to be fired in less than 3 years. In 2020, all of the COVID issues, couldn't do the draft in person. The meetings were over Zoom. There were 256 players selected in that draft. Chad, guess how many players are still with the team that drafted him today?
From 2020,
From the
that
2020
COVID
draft.
Out of how many?
256 total picks.
Can I give you a percentage?
Yes, but I'd
You know
rather
what? Go ahead and say
arrange
it
a
because
number.
I'm going to be so far off that I'm going to sound stupid. So tell us.
66 players
Okay.
are with their team that drafted him from 2020. And that's the whole fifth-year option BS that we talk about. Like, it's such a crapshoot. And even more so without the analysis of who the person actually is. The hit rate is very, very small. If you get a single or a double on rounds 4 through 7 of the draft, you've nearly hit a home run with expectations for your franchise.
Also, let's get away from the grading scale altogether.
Well, the grading scale, though, is based on the mocks that you're bringing up.
It's based on, well, in everyone, it's based on how much they loved someone, right, going in. So then if that perception is gone, then all of a sudden, oh, well, I had this guy as a second-round pick, and it was this team's fifth-round pick.
The value.
So now I'm going to
Kiper's
give
best
them
available.
I'm going to give them all the value of that, and I'm going to give them a knock up in the grade. When in fact, well, the league viewed this person as a fifth-round pick because no one picked them in the second round the way you thought.
Right.
What I mean by doing away the grades mean nothing to me. All I care about, and we're going to get into a little bit of this, what jumped out to you as especially awful, and what jumped out to you as an analyst as especially great? I think, Hutton, to your point about you could just give everyone a D or an F and put it there. That's that's 25 teams in the league.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a group of 25 that just did about the standard.
And 4 years from now, having
or
a coach.
what you expected. And then that group, put them in one side and really tell me, and I know you can do this by who you give an F or an A+, but I don't care about the letter grades. I'm not in 8th grade anymore. Just give me what jumped out to you as good, really good, and what jumped out to you as really bad.
I try to be a realist with this. So the initial, the F is Atlanta because Atlanta went with Michael Penix Jr. at number 8, right? Shocked everybody. But trust me when I say there are other Fs in this first round.
Oh, yeah.
But no one's willing to say this is an awful pick like Michael Penix Jr. because said player was a need or was within the range of where he was actually going in the draft in the first round, according to the mocks of guys who aren't good enough to be hired by an NFL franchise currently. Right? Like that's the perception I have is just what we see versus what we actually receive here is a bit different. Now, there is a nice range. I do think, you have the analyst. I love Dane Brugler. Kiper is, the NFL draft is what it is because of Mel Kiper Jr. They have a very solid range of where these players will actually fall. But because so-and-so has Joe Alt going 7 because all these other teams are going quarterback, wide receiver, they don't know. Who knows what Jim Harbaugh is going to do?
Well, look, I love Dane Brugler, and he's the guy that I read with his beast every year because it's just so much, fact about each player and prospect and background, and he does his research and all that. But Dane Brugler also refuses to be negative. So, he ranks the teams. He doesn't give out letter grades, but I'm reading his stuff today, and his 2 categories are favorite pick and day 3 pick who could surprise. So these are 2 positive things. So I have a hard time when you don't also give me tell me what you didn't like about it. And he does that because in his industry and his business, it does not behoove him to be overly negative about a prospect or about a team or anything like that because of the access he needs and what he does. But I'd like a little bit of negative if you think negative about someone. Now, granted, I can see right here, he's got the Atlanta Falcons 32nd.
Okay. Yeah.
That's negative, right? But then you look below it. Favorite pick, Brandon Dorlus, defensive lineman, Oregon, and day 3 pick who could surprise.
But at least that's
J.D. Bertrand from Notre Dame.
At least those are 2 names we don't hear very often.
Yeah, he's giving you 2 positives, though.
Yeah, and we're going to give winners and losers. But mine,
Tell me what you hated.
Mine's from the perspective of what teams needed and what they actually accomplished versus the talent that you and I watched through the college football season.
Yeah.
And hey, Chad, you know this as well as I do. There are a lot of NFL writers that don't watch college football. And there are a lot
there's a lot of
NFL writers that are grading drafts right now.
Let me take it a step further. There's a lot of NFL writers who have a disdain for college football.
Sure.
It's not just that they don't watch it; they outwardly hate the sport.
What are they doing today? Grading college football players.
They're talking about college. Boy, this guy was a big inline blocking
Grading
tight
college
end, and I'm
football
thinking,
players.
how do you know?
Yeah, they don't.
And what
they
do you
know
care?
based on what Dane Brugler wrote. That's how they know. To Dane's credit.
I agree with you there. I cannot stand the pro football guy who's anti-college football.
And then this
that
weekend?
then has to talk NFL draft. Because I have long said I love this because it's the handshake and the marriage of my 2 favorite things. College football, meet NFL football. Let's get together and have a ton of people go to Detroit, Michigan over 3 days and celebrate it and watch it on TV. I love the event for that reason. I cannot stand the NFL person who outwardly mocks the college game. That's usually from some major northeastern city that grew up only rooting for pro sports and only watching it and went to some small liberal arts college or some Ivy League school and wanted to get into journalism. They hate everything from the South. They hate everything from the Midwest. They hate everything college. They hate pageantry. They hate the whole thing. And then they're going to start typing about, boy, I saw this guy at Oklahoma State, and he really got after him. Thinking, shut up, dude. You don't know a thing about what you're talking about because I saw you mock Oklahoma State, or I saw you mock the SEC or the Big Ten or whatever college we're talking about throughout the season. I do have a personal distaste for that person. And they're all over the place, the person I'm talking about.
Here is the grades from USA Today, for instance. Right after the draft where the Kansas City Chiefs traded up 2 spots, traded up to draft Patrick Mahomes. USA Today's reaction, C-. Calling Mahomes a project is a major understatement. He's nowhere near ready to play in the NFL, and honestly,
didn't even play his first year,
He may never be. Between his inconsistent accuracy due to poor mechanics, his tendency to bail from clean pockets, and his lack of field vision, he's going to leave as many big plays on the field as he creates. This is a risky pick. And then here's a D from SB Nation. Chiefs gave up picks 27, 91, and a 2018 first-round pick to take a backup quarterback. At least for a season, that's what this pick is in reality. While this move helps Kansas City in the future, what does it do immediately in 2017 and 2018? It doesn't give them a top cornerback opposite Marcus Peters. It doesn't give them a linebacker they need. It gives them a developmental player. Look, I like Mahomes as a person and a prospect. I just don't like the value at all. Of course, I'll look like an idiot if the Brett Favre comparisons come true. Well, he's better. Even better. Blew those comparisons out of the water.
I'd like to speak this into existence right now for Outkick.com.
Well, we're doing it. We're doing it with Michael Penix Jr. currently.
No, and we'll get into our stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever. In written form, I don't know if Armando Salguero's rating his best and worst or favorite, least favorite drafts and all that. That's fine because people will read it. Here's what I'd like to do, and I'd like for Outkick to be the leader in this. I want Armando, and I want everyone who covers drafts at the very start, the header, the first paragraph or two of your story, I want you to link your worst draft take in history, like the ones we just read about Patrick Mahomes, along with your best, where everyone else was bashing someone's draft and you were ahead of the curve and you saw it and loved this draft pick. I want to see both. I'd love to read that for everyone who analyzes drafts. Everyone's got a good and a bad one. Doesn't mean I'm not going to read your work, but I'd like for you to put it right out there in the front. So I'm going to rate this year's draft class. Here was my worst take of all time in the NFL draft on a Monday after the draft is over. And here is my best take of all time. I'd love to see that with everyone because everyone's got something good and something bad. I'd like to see just how bad it was or just how good it was.
You know what was great? Not just good, but great? Detroit as the host city. But the scenes from Detroit were awesome. 750,000 fans, the estimate, were in attendance over the weekend. And for a city that has been in economic decline, has hosted 2 Super Bowls and a Final Four during that really bad stretch, and other championships in the city. With the decline in just overall population, they're up 620,000, I believe, which is 28% below the population the last time they hosted a Super Bowl. We're seeing the comeback, and I like to see scenes like this from cities that have a perception of being really down and out versus the city that I want to see, which is more of this, especially with what we've seen in recent years. Props for what was a fun weekend. This is the closest I've seen, Chad. Maybe right on par. Don't know. I wasn't there. I was here in 2019. The closest I've seen to a Nashville-type scene.
Yeah. It's easy to root for this type of story, too, for the reasons you said. I think when you go to a place like Detroit that universally, people kind of snicker about, and it's not the top vacation destination, people that are from there or live there have this like pent-up frustration, and they walk around with an edge about it
grit.
that they want to prove people wrong, too. Oh, you think Detroit sucks? Well, let's break the all-time record for draft attendance and show up, and we'll show you that it's better than you think. They defend it. They can make fun of it, right? It's like your family member. Hey, I can make fun of my little brother, but you better not say a damn word about my little brother, or we're going to fight. That's Detroiters. That's, in our state, people in Memphis have that edge about them. That, if you dare make fun of Memphis and not wanting to go to Memphis, people that live in Memphis or are from Memphis,
fighting words.
Even though a lot of them moved away, by the way, to Nashville or Knoxville or Louisville or somewhere else, they will fight you about it and tell you how great Memphis is. I think Detroit has got that same personality. I love it.
Is it the downward hook 'em horns for them?
I think just any negative, I think so.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Just talk trash about the city.
Vince Young will fight you over the downward hook 'em
Samurai
horns.
kick.
Tim the Toolman Taylor will fight you over talking trash about Detroit. Same thing.
Maybe so. Future NFL draft sites, we know it's Green Bay next year. Beyond that, we don't know. NFL meetings are actually coming up here in Nashville at the end of next month, and we'll learn the future sites. Pittsburgh has put in a bid recently, and I know that the league has looked at Pittsburgh. Charlotte is another one that's really pushing hard for the draft. Cincinnati and Denver are the other two. Beyond that, I haven't heard of any other NFL cities. Those are the sites that we will see the NFL draft move to next.
Charlotte last on that list for me.
Pittsburgh one.
Should I work in ascending order? Charlotte would be last.
Charlotte's last. Pittsburgh or Cincinnati? Denver would be fun.
Pittsburgh before Cincinnati. I would go Denver, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Charlotte in that order.
Now, as far as atmosphere, Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I would say Pittsburgh. I think Cincinnati could be sneaky decent
Sneaky
too.
good.
Get all
Maybe
those
so.
people from Covington, Kentucky.
You do have the downtown scene there, but the view in Pittsburgh, very underrated.
I think Pittsburgh would be cool.
The Pirates Stadium, the backdrop, it's beautiful the way they have the bridge and everything set up.
I wish Denver had more of a like their stadium was downtown and not where it is, like more of a downtown scene with the stadium and the backdrop. But Denver would be cool. I'm going Denver, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Charlotte.
We'll have the NFL headquarters for the draft at Black Hawk Casino in Denver.
Charlotte.
Just don't give the perception that you're gambling there.
Charlotte ranks close to Jacksonville in terms of places I really need to see a draft take place in. Which, by that, I mean last. Last in the league.
Chad?
I'd rather see it in Buffalo.
Winners and losers for the draft, just perception-wise for me. Eagles come away. They needed 2 starters at corner. They needed 1. They have 2. They end up with Mitchell in the first round and then draft DeJean in the second round, and DeJean was mocked in the first round, but they end up with 2 solid corners for a massive need. Chicago, I think, got it right. They didn't have a ton of picks, but they add Rome Odunze to that wide receiving room, and the 3-pack of wide receivers that they have to pair with Caleb Williams, they've done a nice job there, and they've bolstered their offensive line in recent drafts too. And I like the Steelers just going straight offensive line for the most part. They bulked up, kind of trying to get that edge back. Good job by Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Chicago.
I'm going to go Chiefs as a winner. It's amazing how Xavier Worthy, who runs a 4.2 something 40, is there for the Chiefs, and they picked him, and I'm thinking, boy, they just found their next Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Great job, Chiefs. And then they get, and I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name, Kingsley, the big offensive tackle from BYU in the second round. He falls later than most expect, and the Chiefs were able to get him also. There's a reason the Chiefs are a dynasty, and it's not just because of Patrick Mahomes. It's because they make great decisions around Patrick Mahomes also. That this was another example. My big loser, the team right here in Nashville, the Tennessee Titans. I'm so tired of the Titans. And J.C. Latham, it seems like a really good football player. But when you have such a defined need, there is no need to just draft some positionless guy. There's a reason J.C. Latham didn't play left tackle at Alabama. So when you draft a guy to play left tackle who couldn't do it in college, and you just think he's going to plug in and be your left tackle forever, maybe it works out. I don't like that. I prefer to draft a left tackle. Much like a year ago with Peter Skoronski, you draft a guy who played tackle in college, but he's a guard. And you're going to use that high of a pick on a guard. I hate this. Draft a guy that he's played that position. You've seen him play it a lot, not back in high school. You know how good he is that position, and plug him in and play that position. Did not like what the Titans did there. I did like T'Vondre Sweat in the second round for the Titans. I
What a
understand
massive dude, man.
the DWI has scared a lot of teams off in the draft process, but I do think he's got a lot of potential. I don't love what the Titans did with the first round.
Me, it's just individuals. Kirk Cousins. I mean, how do you feel good about how the draft went, regardless of what Atlanta did after the first round? I mean, I guess you feel great because you signed $100 million guaranteed this offseason. He's won the contract draft from what he's done.
I
his
wonder
career.
if he can kind of double dip with this, because now it's so clearly a one and done scenario for him
Yeah.
in Atlanta, where you just go and ball out. You're likely going to be the starter to begin. And if you do well and don't get hurt, then Michael Penix Jr. is the quarterback the next year. You're cut loose. Could you sign another contract for 2 years somewhere else and finish out
They
your
could,
career?
but I don't know if they can cut him based on the cap hit with this. And he has a no trade clause, Chad. Kirk Cousins
yeah,
does.
that puts
I know. That's
it
what
puts
makes
the
it so.
Falcons in a worse spot than him.
And they put themselves in it, though.
Yeah.
You know? The other one's Daniel Jones. Despite them sticking and picking and going with Malik Neighbors, which is a great pick, Armando came on with me Friday, and he was, he's the one who was reporting like New York was trying so desperately to move up to draft Drake May. They wanted Drake May so bad, and they couldn't do it. So I was like, I guess we'll just stick with Daniel Jones. That's not a ringing endorsement yet again.
Such
for
a vote
the
of confidence.
Giants quarterback.